Hi, Mike. Good morning for me and welcome.
Hey Reed, how's it going?
Doing well, doing well. How are you doing?
Doing good, buddy. Getting close to the end
Yeah.
of the weekend, so looking forward to being here with you today.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's I keep forgetting it's Memorial Day weekend. Have any plans or anything f fun for the long weekend?
I am the father of three daughters under the age of 9, so I'm sure it's going to involve swimming, glitter, Disney, and I'll probably be going to see Lilo and Stitch that's coming out this weekend. My daughters are big fans of that.
Nice. Okay. The I'm assuming they've seen the original.
Yes, they've seen the original, and I feel like that came out when I was young, which is a long time ago. And the fact that they know who this character is always cracks me up. And yeah, they did a remake, so they're fired up.
Awesome. Looks like it's at least a packed weekend for you, so that's awesome. My only
Yeah,
plan is probably going to be sailing at least one of the days. Other than that, just kicking back. So.
very nice, man. Yeah, I might try to play some golf, but other than that, just be barbecuing and hanging out with the family.
Excellent. Well, good to hear that. And I also want to welcome you on for we go back quite a few years, but I believe this is between both channels. This is the first time that I've had you on across either of them. So welcome on as one of the guests for the streams. Thank you for joining for that.
My pleasure, and I'm glad that you finally invited me, man. So appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. In the yeah, we it's been what 7 years, 8 years. How I'm trying to think like when did we first cross paths?
Yeah, we definitely first crossed paths probably, I mean, probably a year or two after Power BI was created, right? And that's when we started bringing right back and planning into Power BI. And I think that's when our paths first crossed.
Yeah,
Being
yeah,
on
I
the
think so.
bleeding edge like you are, right? You're like, oh, what? You guys can do right back. You guys can do data entry. That's awesome. What is this? And I think that's how we got together.
Yeah, and that's evolved all the way to you at this point. Were you one of the ones that presented at FabCon? Right?
That's correct. Yeah, yeah. We were at FabCon. We were a platinum sponsor in Vegas a month and a half ago, and a lot of what we're going to talk about today is what I was able to present while at FabCon. We had a huge audience of 200 plus registrants that were interested in being able to get data ready for AI and how you can not only streamline and automate anomaly detection, but also how do we actually take action, right? Instead of having to go through hoops and things like that, can we do something in the front end? And of course, that's where we come in. So yeah, it was a great conference, and hopefully I can share some of those insights with the audience here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'll suggest to do to start from there is if you want, like we talked about it a little bit, but give like a just a short background of any information you'd care to share about yourself for any further context, and then we can use that to segue into kind of talking about what we'll be getting into today.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, so hey everyone, I'm Mike Murata. I'm the Global Vice President here at Acterys. Acterys is a Microsoft partner who provides solutions and services all around the Fabric and Microsoft Power BI stack, including Azure. At the end of the day, what we do is we turn Power BI into a two-way street. So end users can use custom visuals, perform write back, advanced planning and analysis, commentary. Again, as we're going to talk about today, master data management, preparing for AI readiness. We have a really great partnership with Microsoft, especially on the Dynamics side of the house. So we're doing some really cool things for them for extended planning all across Dynamics globally. I've personally been in the Power BI space since its inception. And I think one claim to fame that I can say with a straight face is I was the first person to sell right back in planning inside of Power BI. So seen and done a lot. Worked with 50 of the Fortune 100 and all different types of shapes and sizes of companies, from people that are looking for something very simplistic to maybe somebody that wants to replace an entire legacy platform and kind of bring that into the Microsoft ecosystem.
Nice, yeah. So you were one of the early adopters, for
Yeah.
sure, and implementers, I guess, as you say, when it came to Back, and it's evolved a lot. You know, it went from one company to multiple ones that I think a much larger audience of people that need the ability to do more of a circular system of
Mhm.
data extraction and modification and entry rather than simply just read only, which even still today technically like that's primarily what Power BI is. And I know that they've they're trying to do some like native write back and stuff, which is a cool idea, but the amount of like, I think it's even going to require like Python coding and a few other
It
stuff. It's
is.
not going to be, it's not going to be a simple process. So it's the need for plug and play systems out there is still quite high.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's for the first time ever, right? Like people know what write back is, and like a lot of people, right? When I first started, it was what's write back exactly, just so we're talking the same language, right? So now people are understanding that, with a tool set like ours or, others in the market, you have the ability to turn Power BI into something unique, right? Moving it
Yep.
from just the read-only product into a place that you and your team can collaborate, right? And try to cut back on data silos. So many people. I mean, you take away Excel, every single company in the world would fail and falter, right? So if
Yep.
you can give that type of experience, but remove a lot of the pitfalls of Excel, right, with the data silos and so many people that we're talking to now, read even want like a more structured Excel experience. They don't want people pressing export to Power BI, right? Taking a data set, going to Starbucks and opening up their laptop to a public information, right? Like it also brings in a vibe of data security, right? And people wanting to make sure that people stay within a secure environment. So it's an ever evolving landscape here. And yeah, we're happy to have been here from inception and see that a rising tide lifts all boats, right? So now that write
Oh
back
yeah.
and becoming more mainstream, to be one of the founding members and founding fathers of that goes a long way for us in the market.
Excellent. Yeah, it's good to be one of the movers and the shakers and the early adopters, right?
Yeah. Yep. Staying
If
on
you're
front
ready,
of
I can
that
go
bell curve is pretty cool, and a good place to be.
exactly. Yeah, if you're good to go, I can flip on the screen share and we can get started.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
There you go.
All right. So the ever evolving data landscape, right, that all of us are dealing with on a regular basis. What are the challenges that we hear the most from people in the market? Number one, data silos and inconsistencies. So many people have invested money, right, into building a mature data and analytics function. And they build these beautiful Power BI reports. They have ETL and data validation. And what's still the most popular button in Power BI? Export to Excel, and we create a data silo, right? And all again, and we're going around and around. BI managers are going, why do they keep exporting to Excel, right? So that's a big problem for many people. Is no matter how much we're investing, our end users are still finding ways to create data silos on their day to day. The need for faster, more agile decision making. No longer, is it okay just to have a report? What is it driving? Like, what are the next steps? Like, how can we action this? How's this going to affect our bottom line? So it's really seen a shift over the last few years, right? And I'm sure you have too, Reed, in regards to it's not just about reporting the news anymore. It's about predicting. It's about taking a look at the future, right? Leveraging all the technology that we have here. The growing demand for AI-driven insights. Many people, like they crack me up when I'm talking to like managers in the BI space. They're like, all of our owners at the business unit level are going, hey, can you add AI to this? Right? Using like a general term, right? Like, what does that actually mean? And a lot of people in the market and like end users, right, that see something on the news, just think it's as easy as 1, 2, 3, turn on AI and let's start using it. That's not the case,
Yeah.
right? Garbage in is garbage out. And we'll cover a lot of that today. But you can see there's a massive growing demand for that type of stuff. So it's a buzzword. Every single office of the CIO, right, is looking at ways they can incorporate this for a competitive advantage for their organization. And
Yeah,
again,
I equate it a little bit to real. So like it's almost got out of materials. Like the one that was like 5 or 6 years ago was real time. Everybody's like, oh, I've heard real time. I want real time data. No, most people need near real time, not true real time, because of all the insane complexities come with it. And then it was, oh, I want LLMs. Everybody's doing LLMs. Then it became AI. And now it's agentic AI. Like they all have their places, but there's those certain things where it's like, oh, this will change my business. It will make me a lot more money. Give me this. Well, what do you want to do with it? I don't know, but I know I want the product because it seems to make businesses better somehow.
exactly, dude. That is so spot on. And it's a fad that can come and go, right? The phrase AI is probably not going anywhere for a little bit, right? And
No,
for all
no,
the
yeah.
technology that's coming out. But a lot of people, should be educated on how to actually even leverage this. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit, but you know what? If you start using an LLM, right, and you're starting to leverage AI and you roll this out, an executive asks a question and gets something back that's incorrect, you may have just lost that executive forever, right? How hard is it to regain trust, right, with these people when you're handing out these applications that may be giving wrong information? So what we're trying to instill in people is, yes, it's topical. It's everyone wants it, right? But we also need to make sure we do it correctly to ensure accuracy and confidence and trust in the data, because there's bad actors messing with data sets, right? There's issues, and all this stuff can kind of skew results when it comes to the natural language interactions that people are looking to have.
Agreed.
And then last but not least, again, there's still an ever increasing gap between reporting and action. We have some people that are stuck in, hey, put a report on my desk, I just want to see the results. And other people that, have come up in the technology era that are like, I want to take action. Like, how do we action this? So this is kind of some of the topics that we want to really address here today with the audience. Key takeaways, guys: AI readiness, right? We don't want to show you this silver plate, perfect AI solution as an end result. Because as you know, as well as I do, Reed, it takes time to build that foundation, all right? You need to do it correctly to have that confidence we just alluded to. We're also going to spend some time talking about real-time decision support inside of Fabric and Power BI, and how we can start to supercharge our typical static reports, right, that may be connected to data sources and may be giving good information. How do we model something, right? How do I create a scenario? How do I make a decision and action that right there, or maybe send that to somebody on my team and assign a task, right? All in one screen. And last but not least, we were talking about Excel a few minutes ago, right? So many people are looking for some self-service experience. They're used to that Excel UX and UI, right? So how can we leverage the strength and all of the stuff that our BI teams globally have built, and all the amazing work that a team does to organize and cleanse this data? How do we actually make that something that a random salesperson or a member of our HR team can actually leverage in their own way, right? Give them information. How can we slice and dice it? Can we build our own reports off of the information you're providing? So I want to kind of cover that. And so many people are tired, especially at the large companies, Reads. I'm sure you hear this all the time. If I need to make a small change, I have to submit a ticket. It goes into AI and then to the IT team, and around we go. And maybe in 2 weeks, I'll get something. That's the opposite of self-service, right? So being able to bridge that gap, even if it's a small improvement, many companies are interested in that. So when it comes to AI readiness, guys, what I want to really do is kind of talk. We talked about FabCon, Reed. On the way out, I was listening to a podcast on the CISO Side Up podcast, and it was all about AI advancements and security concerns and all the stuff. I knew I was doing my session on AI, right? So I wanted to kind of study up some more and listen to some topical things. And one of the guys that they had as a guest on the actual podcast, said something that really resonated with me, right? More in the fact that no matter what we do, especially in the next year or so, right, you can automate and streamline and do anomaly detection and have all this AI insights. At the end of the day, even no matter how much you automate and streamline, there's still probably going to be a need for human intervention and or validation, right? Hey, let me check that these things look good. So now this can go into our executive reporting pack, right? So rigorous data validation and auditing, they kind of labeled as key to the effective use of AI. That slow down to speed up. The garbage in is garbage out, right? I know everyone's asking for it, but we need to do it correctly. So I just wanted to, share that quote because I thought it was really important and key for some people to remember in the market.
Yeah, I like the evolution of the term, as you said. It's garbage in, garbage out. It's said in a much more eloquent way, but that story hasn't changed in 40, basically since since the invention of a database. That story has not changed.
100%. It's a tale as old as time, buddy. And a reason that a lot of us are working, right, is to solve that problem for businesses. So still a problem today, but there's ways to make it less of a problem. And, as we kind of alluded to earlier, right, why does AI ready data matter? Because you may not have a need for AI tomorrow, but if your data is structured in an AI ready place, when you turn on Copilot, when you turn on your LLM models on top of your data that's in Fabric or in SQL or in your backend database, and it's structured appropriately, that means your queries, right, are going to be able to reference those, right? So having inaccurate data is going to result in flawed AI models, and you will lose confidence in your user base almost immediately, right? So there has to be a way to flag missing values, to understand duplicate data and different types of formatted inconsistencies, right? Because if we have a customer spelled wrong and we go to query a database, it may not pick up the rest of the data, right, from someone named ABC or ABC dot. So having this raw data coming in from multiple places, and now we'll talk about how Fabric does a great job at certain things and how we can help augment that as well. Modeling, cleansing equals quality data, and then you're eventually ready for those, AI ready insights. So with Fabric nowadays, right, the out of back capabilities, right, and everyone, Reed, what Fabric is, right? We are bringing together Synapse, Power BI, we're bringing together OneLake, and Azure Data Factory Gen 2 and all those things into one umbrella, right? So it becomes a full-blown data platform from engineering and consumption to cleanliness and ETL, all the way to report visualizations. Yep. So they have some pretty cool functions, right? And this is stuff that you work with every day, but really getting stronger and stronger at data ingestion, being able to transform data at that point, as well as, having data profiling and quality checks along the lines to kind of start to see the problems that arise.
Absolutely.
And that really gives people a solid foundation, right? But as we alluded to, and as Travis mentioned in that podcast, right, there's always going to be a need, right, for someone to validate this to make sure it's correct, at least in early days in AI usage, right? So what we do as a Microsoft partner, right, is we have custom visuals that can be used inside of Power BI. So when an anomaly is detected, right, that could go directly into a report that can have notifications and alerts. Someone can come in and validate that or let them know they're reviewing it. And then when it's done and validated, hit a checkbox and let that go into our production reporting. So it becomes a much more streamlined and automated way to collect human insights to make sure we get that validation right, to have those interactive dashboards and ease the burden on IT. At the end of the day, IT is typically good as long as the business checks off on things, right? And we have governance around it, that these numbers are correct or this is going correctly. So with that being said, what I figured we could do is maybe just show an example or two, Reed, of how people are using the Acterys platform with Fabric from a back-end data perspective and anomaly detection, but also how you can interact with data in Power BI. Does that sound good?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, cool. So what I'll do is I will undoubtedly have to authenticate real fast, which is always a fun part of my day. So give me 1 second here, everybody.
My favorite part is I have one out of my 50 clients that has something very weird with their system where when I authenticate, it requires me to do it about 3 times before it actually accepts it. It's the most, and then about every 10 minutes, the dialog box pops up and I have to do it again.
I know. Believe me, it's hard to keep this stuff going. I spent a lot of time on demos and presentations, and even when we were at FabCon, right? Like things are timing out on me. So one thing I wanted to introduce you to, Reed, and to the audience is one of the biggest differentiators about Acterys is that we have something called the Acterys Modeler and the Acterys Data Hub. This is a web-based portal, Reed, that end users can actually connect to their Power BI data models, to their backend SQL tables like Fabric SQL and things like that, and actually manage fact tables and dimension tables and things like that themselves. Now, of course, we're not going to let all of our users do this, right? But for some power users and for admin users, this becomes a really nice way to start managing data types, understanding anomaly detection, all these things without having to open up SQL Management Studio every single second of every single day, right? So as an example, what I want to show you real quick, and I'm going to filter down in all my dimensions, and I'm going to go into the demo that we're going to show here. So what I've done, go ahead, Reed.
No, sorry, I was just the sound of agreement.
Yeah, sounds good. So what I've done now is found my employee table. Okay. Now, as you can see, all this is looking at is a backend SQL, Fabric SQL table. We have a unique identifier, we have names, we have departments, we have positions, location, and a salary amount. Now, the cool part about what this platform allows you to do is you can actually edit data. So as an example, think about like someone wanted to do comments, right? I can actually add a new comment here, right? And I can say, Mike comment XYZ, and I want that to be a long text. They can write an unlimited character amount, right? And just like that, Reed, we can actually augment backend tables and make them right back enabled. Every other platform, and you're going to have to go and open up different items and do things in the back end. Here, you can do this. And now, without an exaggeration, I can toggle on comments, and now Mike comment XYZ is here, meaning my Power BI report can write back to this, which is pretty cool and very easy to set up.
Nice. Okay.
In addition, one thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to AI readiness, right, is going to be really around master data management. Now, one really cool thing that we do here is that through this platform and with these tables and these fields, you can actually have something called an Acterys type. So all of this will dictate what type of data we have in a given column, right? As an example, is it a true false statement? That's just a checkbox. A date calendar picker, right? Is it a integer? Is it a currency? Are there decimal points? Is it a link? And you can establish these. It's automatically detected by data type, but you can also update and override these. And now anything in Power BI, when it comes to writing back, will assume this data type and allow for dropdowns, allow for date pickers, allow for rich text commentary. Okay. And one really cool thing is that you can also do, if you guys see this little link here, it's called a linked column, right? So what you can do is actually say, for all positions that we're going to be able to update for any reason, it needs to pull from our job title table. That is a master data management certified list of positions that we actually have in our ERP, right? So it's not analyst 1, 2, 3, it's analyst. And when you go to drop down from that, that's what all you can do. So here you can see, you can set up linked columns. You can say, if I want to have a drop down, I need to look at our ERP system data. I need to look at these different statuses, whatever that may be. So you can set
for that is you can set it to an existing column in a database. Can you also set it manually, or does it need to be linked to something that's already in the database somewhere?
You can set it manually right here. You can actually go into column types and actually type in 5 different selections that you would like to make.
So you can assign a list if a list is not available, but the to Matthew Roach's maxim, the as downstream as necessary, as upstream as possible.
Bingo. That's a good call. And yes, so if you want to do something quick and dirty, right, where you want to have a status update of complete in process, right, and pending, you can just type those 3 things into a field list, and then they will show up only for the end users. Will be their 3 options they can choose from. You're maintaining the logic back here in the backend database. The end users can see that instantaneously.
That's a cool. Okay, nice.
Yeah. So I want to show this to you because this is also can act as a anomaly detection mechanism. So now, if anything in this table does not align to the linked column, we can throw an alert. And that's what will take you to our Power BI report here. Okay. I'll go full screen for you real fast, but if you can see here, okay, what we have now is a listing of 15 positions and employees that are not syncing up from a master data management perspective, right? Everything in white, read only. Things in red have an issue or can be updated by the end user. So with our solution, Reed, now that we've added this, if you can see standard Power BI visuals here, Acterys is visual here. What you're able to do now is say, hey, I want to edit this. So we have multiple ways to interact with data. But this is that human insight, that human validation now. These can be assigned to people in the HR team, right, that are managing these positions. This can be assigned to a business unit leader that hired these people. Now they can come in, choose from a drop-down, and let the end user and the data and AI team know that this analyst, right, really is an HR analyst because that's what we have to choose from. Okay, they can leave a comment and they can leave a process and let them know that this is now reviewed. or they're under investigation. All right. Commit save changes. All of this writes back. So I can say this has been reviewed, save this back to the database. My sheet will update. All of our reporting will update. And do you see up top, we already changed that we have 14 employees and positions that are not AI ready. So it becomes a living, breathing, walking to-do list. And because we also have something called Smart Excel Read, I'm not sure if you've seen this yet in person. This is a 100% Excel UX and UI directly in Power BI. No pitfalls. We have row-level security, right? You have everything that you need here, and this is connected to a backend database. The cool part is that if I want to come in here and say, hey, all of this is under investigation, I can just use my basic Excel-like functionality here. Okay, you see how we can drag and drop. You can do bulk inputs. You can do copy and paste, right? And you can do a lot of different things here inside of the solution. But again, remember, all of these active drop-downs are coming from Master Data Management Certified list of positions that we know will actually integrate with our reporting.
Now, is it Excel-like or actually Excel that's running inside of the custom visual frame?
This is our own proprietary software. It's a custom visual, and this is only in, this is for like end users. But if I take you full circle, I'll show you what like a developer would look like inside of Power BI and like your Power BI desktop or service. But you can see that we now have a ribbon up here. So when you're developing reports for the first time ever, Reed, you don't even have to require DAX. You can actually set up Excel-like formulas that will live in the visual and be used for read-only reporting, for data entry, for everything in between. And if you see up here, you can even do different types of write-back functionalities. So like as an example, if I want to do a button, a combo drop-down, checklist, without an exaggeration, buddy, it's this easy. You learn how to use the ribbon of Excel, then you can come in here with some tweaks and be able to start making write-back enabled applications.
Very cool.
Yep. So again, that can be charts and graphs. That can be formulas, right? You can see we can leverage anything that Excel can do. You can set up data validation logic, which is pretty topical to what we're speaking about today. And you can do all of this with no coding. You mentioned Python earlier, right? And how we have to do a lot of that stuff. This is going to be the anti that. So as an example, if I don't want something to be above a certain number or a certain growth percentage, I can now fill out common sense logic, determine what the error message will be for my end users, and then dictate, do I want to stop them from running back? Do I want to give them a warning that they can override? Or do I just want to give them some basic information, letting them know something? So this is simply how easy it is, my friend, to configure some of this stuff. And you're in Power BI, and you can freeze panes and all the things people hear about all the time. Can I freeze panes in Power BI? Very popular question. Right? Simple things like that you can now do. And again, this is all connected to a write-back engine and the ability to write back to databases and things like that. One really cool thing, Reed, is that even if people are doing like some MDM in a spreadsheet or doing planning or data entry in a spreadsheet, you can even import the existing template you want directly here. The only difference is we're going to hook it up to Power BI and Fabric data, and then the write-back enabled fields are right back to a database.
Oh, that's okay. So reusable then.
It's all reusable, 100%. So, but yeah, that's a very popular interface nowadays, and again, nothing lives in this interface, right? Once I commit this back, it writes back to a database and refreshes Power BI instantaneously.
Yep, that's fair.
Okay, so this is just a quick taster of how some organizations are leveraging this tool to prepare data for AI readiness. Having the anomaly detection, the Acterys types, having link dimensions, and automated dashboards like this with notifications. And this is all integrated, Reed, with Teams and Microsoft as well. So Outlook and things like that. So automated push first pull type stuff, which is what a lot of companies have been looking for as of late.
Okay, very cool.
Yep. So what I'll do is we can kind of shift back over here. As we continue on, I want to continue this journey with you guys about real-time decision support, right? How do we bridge that gap between insight and action?
Okay.
As we were kind of talking about, man, like decisions delayed can literally affect the company's bottom line, right? If we can't get numbers accurate, we cannot submit our reporting to the SEC. What does that do to stock price? You know what I mean? Like if we have a delay. So there's a lot of things that can really cause a lot of problems for organizations. This isn't, oh, I have to work late today. That stinks. We're talking about business critical problems, right? That can be lost, but that can be brought into the fold for no apparent reason other than we have inaccurate data. So,
Okay.
so business opportunities are routinely lost to this, right? Now more than ever, think of tariffs. Are market conditions changing in hours and days? Yes, they are, right? This isn't something that's going to be in 6 years, the market may adjust. People need to be able to do all different types of scenarios, manipulation of data, and be able to kind of make that decision-making process, much shorter. And as you know, with Excel, Power BI, traditional reporting cycles, right? Import models, import mode, that might not be the most efficient way to kind of get those decisions. And at many times people turn to Excel to then import their data, do some crazy analysis, get what they think is an answer, and maybe report back to their boss.
As you said, yeah, the like small delays can lead to costly decisions with some of that stuff.
Yeah. Exactly. And then, with Fabric's real-time data connectivity, right? I don't want to say real-time because you were joking about that earlier, but, having the live connections to multiple sources now and all the things that they're involved in, all the different models that you can have inside of Power BI, right? More professional and more enhanced streamlining of data, right? Available inside of Fabric. Having those real-time or near real-time dashboards in Power BI, right? Via direct query and things like that. The one thing that it still needs help with, right, is write back and planning capabilities for a more enterprise grade level, right? The trans-analytical write back feature, right, just released, I don't know, was it yesterday or the day before, for some testing and things like that. But still, many organizations that you talk to, right, they're still leveraging Power Platform and Power Apps or a cocktail napkin to collect data, right? So they still need a place and a way and a function to maybe bring some of that data into a one-stop shop experience, right? So again, as we move forward here, that's what we'll start to show you more of like, hey, did you know that you can actually write back data, that you can create scenarios, that you can see problems happening and then resolve those instantaneously. So with that being said, I will shift gears just a little bit and bring up a couple different dashboards and reports here so people can see other areas of the Acterys solution inside of Fabric and inside of Power BI and how it can add value. So what we have here, everybody, we have a couple KPI scorecards, and then we have like a basic table up here with some information. One really cool thing about our product is that we have sliders, and we also have drag and drop visuals. So end users can see a bar chart, manipulate a cost of goods sold percentage, see the effect across their report. As an example, if I come here and I want to increase my cost of goods sold, and we have this set up to automatic refresh, you guys can see that all of our reports will now update based on that refresh. So all I did was hit a slider, okay? And now we have all different types of information on our report. You also, with this application, have the ability to come in and press edit, and maybe you want to manually update something, right? These are all things that you can now do. You can do this by product. You can do this at the higher level of the hierarchy, at the lowest level of the hierarchy, right? You can collapse and filter. I can make assumptions at an entire product level if I want. But again, these are things that you can now do live in the dashboard. And Reed, one thing that's important, buddy, I want to make sure that you and the audience understand is this is a version of data, right? It's not, we're never going to override actuals. All of your actuals stay exactly the same. What we allow users to do is to now create those sandboxes, right? Without IT involvement, to have their own scenarios where they can manipulate data. And guess what they're not doing? They're not pressing export to Excel and creating a data silo. They're leveraging the data that we provided them in Power BI.
Okay, so you're marrying the two universes together.
That's it.
Yeah.
Turning Power BI into a two-way street, right? I mean, just giving it a little extra juice. It's an amazing product, but with this, it turns it into something unique, right? Where you can now have this two-way interaction, and this isn't living in my session. You've done parameters, right? Parameters are session-based. So I can't say, hey, Frank, take a look at my report and my version I created. Do you think we should present this to the board next week? It was in a session. So with our product, everything that I've shown you here is saved back to a database. Therefore, if I say, hey, Reed, open up our SNOP dashboard and click on the Acterys version, you will now see that data and we can collaborate on that together.
Yep, exactly. Very cool. I like the, well, as you said, just the agility to be able to like kind of dance back and forth between reporting and then pushing this into the back end and then getting the real time changes in the visuals is very, very slick to be able to have for sure.
Yeah. And like, here's another example. Just, I want to make sure we cast a wide net and talk to a lot of people in the audience, right? Here's one very simple one, sales and operations planning, right? Demand planning, sales into production. A lot of our customers out there, manufacturing organizations, right? We have one of the largest beer providers in the world that does demand planning with this platform. We have the largest food chain, market chain in the United States that uses this for demand planning, right? So this is a powerful tool. And of course, when it comes to demand and supply and inventory read, a lot of that is going to be, I need to play around with scenarios, right? How are the tariffs affecting us? What should we be doing through a price point to ensure we stay profitable? So one really cool thing here is, number one, using our templates here. As you can see, it's a pretty nice menuing system. It looks clean, so a lot of people enjoy that. But I can also move throughout scenarios and even create scenarios from scratch. So in this example, I'm being taken to an admin portal. Now, as long as I have the correct permissions, right, I am now going to be able to create a new scenario, okay? I will be able to say, hey, this is a Mike what if. This is an aggressive 2026. This is we're going to get hit with 15 new tariffs on Tuesday, scenario. So what you can do here is come in here and actually create new scenarios, right? So, we can say tariff, aggressive, right? And be able to come in here now and put this in progress and then be able to fill in different attributes and create a new scenario. We don't need IT involvement. We can come in here and make our own business decisions if we want. Once you create this version, you can then filter that version right here on your filter page, right? And as an example, I can come in here now and say I'm working on my forecast or my what if or whatever that may be. And now I can come in here and manipulate different products, model a new product, do everything in between. And I'm not messing with any production reporting. I'm not creating that data silo. Now, one awesome thing that a lot of people leverage the solution for, especially with Fabric, right, is that we have the ability to call out when something's going wrong, right? So here, for this Surface Book 3, we already have an indicator on our homepage that says the ending inventory has a negative balance, which is impossible. We cannot have a negative balance. We're at 0. So this is an indicator that I can now right-click on, and using standard Fabric functionality, I can drill through into my demand planning screen. The cool part about how you drill through like this is it takes in all the filter context. So when it filters me to this page, I'm only going to be looking at my Surface Book 3 information, right? Because that's where my anomaly was. That's where my problem was. So what we can see here is that we got hit a little bit with some high orders, right? So we have 7,800, 3,400, and 5,500 respectively. And what that means is that based on our opening inventory, we're flashing red in the first week of April.
Okay. Yep.
Right? So what we can do now, when we talk about decision support, is being able to manipulate data, to make assumptions, to make changes. In this example, I may want to, hit us up with a supply replenishment. If I take inventory from that warehouse, right, and I bring it over to this warehouse for this product, what does that do? Does that get me back on track? Right? So now we can save this, right? You can now update this information. This is a scenario that, based on the visuals you see on our screen, we are back to enough inventory to carry out the rest of the year. So very quickly and easily, I saw a problem. I was able to model some stuff. I can share this with colleagues. We can promote this into an actual working version, all of the above.
And the goal with any of this, right, is just to be able to go from question to answer in a shorter time period.
Bingo. That's exactly right, my friend. So, that's what I wanted to just show, just one simple example for the audience to kind of see real life what people use this for, right? Whether it's in S&OP, finance, IT, being able to make these assumptions, make these adjustments without having to leave the screen.
Exactly.
All right, so let's switch back and let's come finally to a very important topic, and then we'll kind of open things up for questions, Reed, and let you drive from there, buddy.
Sure.
Real-time planning, right? And KPI updates we just kind of talked about. What about self-service reporting and analysis? Now, I don't want to spend too much time here because I want to, spend some time with you in the audience after the fact, but this is very important. And as we mentioned at the beginning of our session here, so many people are yearning for this. And you've heard self-service analytics for years, right? What does that actually mean? And is it just a hoop dream, right? Is it even possible to do this type of thing? So what I want to talk about is how the benefits of self-service analytics and having this structure behind it that allows business units and end users without heavy Power BI training or Fabric training to be able to start doing some stuff themselves. Again, we talked about decisions. It's been a thread here today. Faster decision cycles, reduce that IT dependency, and increase the agility. Right? What happens if a marketing team needs to quickly analyze campaign performance? Right? Do they have to submit a ticket and get a report bill for them, or can they maybe look at all of their fact data very quickly and easily, and maybe be able to build something on the fly themselves via drag and drop? Right? So just putting that in their hands is something that we've heard people be very interested in as of late. So with Fabric, right, we have Power BI drag and drop report creation. Of course, we have built-in exploration and visualization tools, and we have a really nice user-friendly interface, right? There's a reason that Power BI is in the top right of the Gartner quadrant for the last 5 years, right? So it is user-friendly. The price is right. And people really like enjoy using it. So it gives you a really solid base for self-service reporting. Everything I just alluded to, right, Reed, is someone that actually knows Power BI. What about the random VP of finance that just used to consuming 1 or 2 reports, right? Is that person able to become truly self-service, themselves? That may be a stretch, right? Because that's just not realistic in today's day and age. So what I wanted to talk to you all about today was, lastly, to show you how we can actually do some real-time self-service reporting and analytics, right? Where you can do and have full planning features, where you can have target setting, but we can also do write back and data entry. I even want to show Reed you one fun little nugget, and that's going to be how the Acterys Excel add-in can actually allow end users to query and build dynamic reports in Excel looking at your Power BI tabular models.
Yeah. Okay.
So let me pull back our screen, and what we'll do is switch back to Smart Excel, which we started talking about a little bit ago. As we said, everybody, Smart Excel is a really powerful write back enabled report. The big difference is, if you saw my previous screens, Read, we had to press save changes and refresh the report, right? With Smart Excel, everything updates in real time. So if you saw, my entire graph down here just updated based on my increase. Also, you don't have to go cell by cell, right? So I can come here and say, hey, I want my property tax, right, to be 30%. I want my utilities to be 30% of my property tax. And then user can now come in here using basic Excel functions and drag this all the way across. And now they're doing data entry or reporting on their own. Okay. They can also add calculated fields, my friend, right? So if they want to come in here and say, give me this, plus this, right? Reed, you know me, man. I'm a caveman, right? I'm not a Power BI developer. So being able to do this, right? And this is pretty cool because guess what, everyone? You can save report definition, and it takes into account my enter ID. And now the next time I come back to my report in this view, I will have my calculations that I built and my view of my report. So if I wanted to slice and dice this, if I wanted to do X, Y, and Z, all I need to do is save my report definition and Read. It's a personalized view for that end user that remembers their context of their filters.
Okay.
That remembers any calculations they created on the side, or even additional tabs they may have added to do some, some ifs and VLOOKUPs and everything else they want to do.
So they got kind of an equivalent of the personalized bookmarks, but within this particular custom visual.
Exactly. And the ability to use formulas, right? Not just a Power
Yep.
BI bookmark where you're saying, hey, I want to look at these pre-filtered items. We're talking about, the team that puts this out for publishing, right? Built a framework and a standard visual and a standard view. The end user now being able to augment with other data and calculations they'd like to save.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. And then one really cool thing, Reed, I want to show you is I gave you an example earlier, right? Maybe I just want to maybe take a look at my customer table, right? And see how many customers I have. And I don't want to ask IT to do that. So with this function, as an example, I can actually come in here now and like search for different types of fact tables that are feeding my tabular model. So I can come in here and say, show me my dimension table for my customers. And now when I select this, we are going to pre-populate, okay, and show the end user the entire fact table and all the data that's there. This read can be a 100% read-only experience, right? They are not able to come in here and adjust this unless you tell them they are. But you can see all of our customer data now inside of a table. And as you can imagine, that end user in marketing can now start to build their own reporting using this tab as a data set. Again, that's powerful, right? We are not pushing
Yeah,
them.
absolutely.
We're not pushing them to Excel and creating a data silo. We are giving them a live look at the data that's feeding their Power BI reports and letting them build things off of that, whether that be in an alternate tab or even in the same file for their own personal usage.
And I like the amount of the self-service. I think that bespokes it to individual people that are in here is very useful. So that way, there's a shared experience, but it can still be customized.
Exactly, dude. And that's why, like, the model behind, right, this fact table that we're looking at is a shared experience. Everyone's looking at the same table, but what you do with that information, you can kind of do yourself. And guess what, man? All you need to know is how to use Excel formulas. And guess what? 80% of the people in business do. They know how to use Excel formulas. So
Exactly.
this gives them that custom experience. And then last but not least, I just want to show you the same vibe here inside of Excel. So via the Microsoft app store, you can just get the Acterys Excel online add-in. And what you can actually do here is connect to the same exact data model that's feeding Power BI read. This becomes powerful because a lot of people want to work in Excel. This is like analyzing Excel, but on steroids, right? Because you're not looking at an individual report. So what you can do is, and this can all be based on row level security and things like that, but take a look at this. And maybe you've seen things like, Hyperion and other products in the marketplace over the years. This allows you to come in here now and look at your models, right? And be able to say, hey, show me my account group, right? And my rows, my account name, and it becomes a truly self-service experience on your data.
Oh, yeah.
So now I can say, hey, I don't want to look at all my account groups. I want to look at expense, revenue, and cost of sales, and I want revenue on top. In my columns, what do I want in my columns? Okay, well, in my columns, I want to be able to have different scenarios, right? Maybe actual versus budget variance. And I want to be able to see months, right, over a calendar year. So I can come in here now and say, give me my months on top with the budget and forecast underneath. So I can say, give me actual versus budget. I want to look at 12 months. What do I want my filters? I want to be able to look at my organizations, different parts of my hierarchy. And maybe I want to limit what I'm actually looking and pulling in here into a certain year, right? So you can pre-filter this. And just like that, read without an exaggeration, we have created a fully connected Excel report that looks at the same exact data that you have inside of Power BI. So this is a complete, you're starting to give the end user a choice of how they want to interact with data. Do they want to do that in Power BI? Do they want to do that in Excel? So this is
You're
pretty
giving
cool
them,
because,
yeah. I mean, it's full choices of basically like whatever tool is easiest for them to use, right? At the end of the day, it's just like it's the equivalent. Are you pulling data with with SQL or Python? Like it's if you're comfortable with it, we're going to give you choices to use the platform you're most comfortable in to do this type of work.
Exactly, man. And again, then they can augment this and save this off as a personalization, right? So if I want my gross profit, right, I can just drag these across. You can save this template off. The next time you connect to your Acterys app online, it will refresh with all of your real-time data.
Got it. Okay.
So just wanted to make sure you saw that. You know, I know we're talking about Fabric and stuff, but as we already mentioned, Excel's not going anywhere. So we have a really developed upon and robust Excel UI that a lot of people like to use to augment and even do some custom reporting and self-service analytics.
And I do have some questions here that
Sure.
Steve and I chatted about a little bit, kind of coming up into this. And so, one curiosity is like with the platforms evolving between like Azure, other stuff. Like, do you for Acterys, is there any kind of a vision of like, is it mainly going to stick between like essentially plugins for Excel and Power BI? Will there ever be like just like a kind of a web browser experience or like an evolution outside of those, or what's the long-term vision for like what places there will be or evolving places there will be to kind of like do these type of inputs, modifications, planning, forecasting?
Sure. So we already have the web-based portal. So that data hub and modeler I showed you, with permissions, you can
Yep.
actually go in there and do all of your write back directly through that
Oh,
portal if you
nice.
wanted.
Okay, excellent.
Power BI, by far the most popular, the most usage
Yep.
there, right? So that's going to be staying. And with Smart Excel now, it's probably going to really take a big shift into Power BI and Fabric because of the fact that we are now giving that Excel experience inside of the confines of Power BI, right? So it's going to be
Mhm.
the web-based portal with our modeler and our data hub, and with row-level security, you can change what that experience looks like, right? You can say, hey, here's your information, here are your forms, here are the things that you need to update, okay? And then going
Okay.
forward
Yep.
with Smart Excel, everything will be in Fabric. You know, one thing I didn't even really show today, but Smart Excel, Read, because it's an Excel like design experience, you can actually just take a PDF and import it here and then choose what fields you want to make right back enabled. People are building forms in 20 minutes, right? So
Nice.
it gives a very nice experience. It's still going to be in Power BI and Fabric, but it's just a form. I need you to tell me 6 things. And people are building them in 20 minutes and pushing them to a back-end table.
And a follow up to that as well. I think with some of these entries and everything else, there, as I'm sure you're aware, like there's definitely enterprise clients that have a fairly robust pipeline of like approvals, processes to make sure that like all the I's have been dotted, T's have been checked. What's one of the more like robust integrations that's been done with some of this, but ensuring that like the right people are the only ones who have permissions to do that. So like, you know, how well does this integrate with those more complex approval workflows that some of the enterprise clients might have?
Sure. We actually have a full platform that just handles that. So it's our
Okay.
workflow platform. It's actually a drag and drop experience where you can actually see Active Directory groupings and people that are a member of your organization and create workflows and steps via drag and drop. And then we do the back end development work to make sure that they work appropriately. So at some of our Fortune 500 customers, we have multiple steps within a workflow,
Yeah.
right? Some of those are involving a Teams notification. We have emails, and we also have links that go with the email that takes them to the filtered report in Power BI. That's like what we would consider standard out of the box.
Yep.
Now, some of our customers, when they get to that final approval, right, they may need to push data outside of Fabric or SQL and go back to SAP or Oracle, right? So that would be what we consider a more complex one. But with Acterys, remember that true false statement I showed you in the modeler?
Mhm.
When approved by CIO Frank, right, then this data will be flagged to move from SQL, right, and be mapped back into SAP. It has governance, it has audit log. You can see who approved it throughout the chain, and you have all of your reporting around that. So some customers are okay with everything living from a version perspective. Other people go, that master data management change is approved. I want to push that back to ERP. You can do all of that using the Microsoft stack, right? So
Yep.
Acterys would be the front end checkbox or approval that takes place. And then that will be integrated with something like Azure Data Factory, right? That will then take that data from a database and map that into something else.
Okay. So I mean, it sounds like it's the active drill intra. I have to continue to remind myself
Entra,
to say
no,
the
me
new
too.
word now.
Entra ID.
Yeah,
Yep.
well, it's like you've had like Microsoft is really good at rebranding things that don't always need to be rebranded. But yeah, then we have to spend 3 years learning a new word.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Dataverse,
Yeah.
Fabric, we got Synapse, all
To be
kinds of
fair, those are at least new products
yeah.
in those cases. But it would be like renaming Access to something else. 20 years after it's been invented. Digressions aside, but yeah, I think that's a good thing because at the end of the day, like you want to make sure nobody fat fingers a number in that can jump an approval process or anything else before it goes into whatever down upstream systems it needs to be written into.
Yeah, no
Let's
doubt. There's a
see.
difference between sandbox and what if scenarios and production approvals, right? And making material
Yep.
changes to a reporting model.
Looking through some of my other questions. Oh yeah. So some other ones for scalability and stuff, and thinking about like Fortune 500, because you can have a multi-billion-dollar company that deals with millions of rows. You can have a multi-billion-dollar company that deals with billions or trillions of rows of data. So, like, I guess across different systems, have you ever noticed any issues with problems with data scale and size between any of this stuff, or I guess what tables are typically getting written to?
Yeah, so there's a big difference in what you mentioned there. Okay, so source
Yep.
data and size of tables and how many rows and how much metadata we have are different than what we're actually writing back, right?
Mhm.
So take a multi-million row table, right? I'm Mike Murata. I'm only responsible for Philadelphia region. When I log in, I'm already looking at a pre-filtered data set. Let alone, am I going to update every single record for Philadelphia? No, I'm going to come in and make a change. And the write back statement's very lightweight. So what's beautiful about our product is the fact that we have the ability to simply write back and refresh only what's been updated. We are not talking about doing a mass change to 1 trillion records because how can the human mind even fathom that, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, it's a matter of, do we want to maybe look at 10 different numbers if we're looking at regions across the United States and their demand, right? And we only want to aggregate, and when we do a breakback only to those 5 regions, right? Or do we want to go back and update every single solitary SKU in our entire model? But with our backend engine, because it's all focused on the back end, you have the ability and the power of the back end of Microsoft Stack. Some people are doing all things in the client-facing visual read. That's when things break down. So we're very happy that we still have this write back engine that works behind the scenes and does all of the heavy lifting and understands what to leave alone and how to refresh it. We're not trying to update a million transactions that are all stored in the visual, because that can be a very painful process for many people.
So essentially, there's intelligent write back to a degree. So if you have 5,000 entries, you only make like on the visual table you have. If you only make changes to 2 of those rows, you're not going to write back all 5,000. You can configure it to write back just the changes for the 2 or whatever that scale might be. Like it's pushing back only data that's needed. Yeah,
that's what our engine does out of the box. That's how it's been architected, right? So when you said intelligent, if I show you some other slide decks, it's actually intelligent write back. So what it does is it understands the intersection or the tuple of data, right, inside of your data model that we need to update. It opens up your model, performs brain surgery, recompresses it, and shows the effects inside of Power BI.
that makes sense then. And as you mentioned, like to your point, it's you don't need to store more data than necessary. There's no point of taking like a brute force snapshot. Is usually what I call those out. It's and a lot of modeling does that, is where every day you get a record, you get a written record of everything, regardless of changes, just because it needs to be stored in the database like that. But it consumes a lot of storage capacity when you do that. So,
and one big thing I want to mention too is with the scenarios I was showing earlier, we only store deltas. So that's why you always saw, like, I had a source version. I had to say, hey, take numbers from a budget or numbers from a forecast, right? And precede it. Maybe I want to add some logic, but we're only storing deltas on that in the actual version table. So it keeps things very lightweight. There's not a ton of data storage, but I mean, the biggest company in the US that from a data perspective has like a terabyte of data that we are updating and interacting with on a given moment. Massive amount of data. As we talked about with one of the largest grocery chains in the entire United States, you can imagine how many SKUs that they have to plan on.
Yeah, exactly. A little larger than maybe some of your other clients.
100%. Some people are like, I have 1,000 SKUs. I'm like, okay, that's not bad compared to what the other companies are telling us they have. With hundreds of thousands of SKUs. From all over the place. Especially when you start talking about, e-market type of stuff, right? And you get into websites and all kinds of good stuff as well.
A couple of, I think a couple good finishing questions for this. So the roadmap wise, do you guys have anything planned in the next like 6 to 12 months? Upcoming features, anything that's on the roadmap to kind of pay attention to or look for?
I think that everyone that's listening to this and has any interest should probably follow us on LinkedIn, because in the next couple of months, one of the coolest items around AI and Copilot that I've ever seen is going to be coming out from Acterys. So we have our CTO, Reed, is actually a doctor of AI and ML. So we are very, very well versed and very focused on adding things that we talked about today in a more automated fashion to our tool set. I don't want to give anything away, but I've seen it and it's awesome. And I hate to be that guy, but I would say stay tuned for a big announcement probably in June that should have some shockwaves sent out across the globe about what you can do with Right Back merged with AI inside of Fabric.
I put in the LinkedIn link in there in the chat for anybody watching now or later to go check that out. But as you said, keep an ear and an eye out for some announcements. So that's good to know. Then
I'm very excited stuff, and we're making all kinds of other roadmap adjustments. But the big needle movers are going to be pretty exciting this summer.
Two final questions, I guess, though, for people like interested in exploring this stuff. What's the best way to both get started if they wanted to say sign up, get a trial, test out some of the visuals, anything around that, and or like learning resources for people who are like, okay, I've signed up, I have some access, and then like what's the best documentation to look at? So kind of a two-part question.
Yeah, so we have a full-blown knowledge base that has a variety of different content. What you'll need to do is submit something through our website. You can request a free trial. And what we do is make sure that we vet you from an email perspective, right? That we're not getting random Yahoo emails and things like that, but from your work email. Then you'll get an approval that will give you access to a free trial environment, as well as our data and knowledge base where you guys can learn how to leverage the product. Additionally, we in my team, right, can provide custom demos to you and your organization, talk about individual use cases. We barely scratch the surface. And we also have a public-facing demo environment. Same exact process. Please feel free to reach out to me. Hey, Mike, I'm interested in playing around with your demo environment. And we can literally grant you access and add 5 or 6 different reports that you and your team can now play around with and get familiar with. So we offer trials. We have a public-facing demo environment, and we can do custom demos for you and your team. Same thing goes if you're ever interested in learning more about the licensing model or what this looks like if you ever wanted to add this to your Microsoft investment. So I would say email me is a great way to go. I can facilitate to our teams in your region. We have full sales teams in EMEA and APAC, as well as North America. And again, the website has a lot of good form fills and things like that you can fill out and get all the information you need. Reach out to me directly or on LinkedIn. And of course, you can also reach out to Reed as well.
Absolutely, for both of those. And I'm dropping your contact info in there. The link also to sign up for the demos. But as you said, feel free to reach out to either of us for additional resources. Happy to direct you to any of those necessary to get started, to either explore the software or to just take a look at some of the learning videos and stuff as well that's available in other webinars and things. So excellent. Any final words as we wrap up? Anything else? Words of wisdom, insights, takeaways?
Just make sure that people in your organization understand that AI isn't something that you just click a finger and use. And that will make it better for all of you guys that care about this stuff as well, from an expectations perspective. And remember that no matter what we do and how automated we get, right, I really truly believe there's going to still need to be some human insight or validation, so people have faith in what they're actually consuming.
I agreed. I mean, it's the equivalent of you hire an expert analyst at a company. They're not going to produce insights on day one. They need to learn their ecosystem. AI and anything like that it needs to learn about you before it can actually start doing stuff. And it might be faster than a person at it, but it still takes time.
100%. Spot on. And again, mainly thanks everyone for spending some time with us. Reed, thanks for the invite, man. I'm looking forward to next time. All right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday and long weekend, and everyone take care as well. Have a good Memorial Day weekend for anybody in the US and otherwise. Yeah. Have a great weekend.
Enjoy. Get some sun, everyone.
All right. Take care.
All right. See you.